You know that feeling when your mind has been looping the same decision again and again, like a song stuck on repeat. You've weighed every angle, imagined every outcome, played out every what if you can think of, and still, you're paralyzed. No closer to choosing, no closer to acting, just stuck in a fog of mental exhaustion that feels productive but leads nowhere. That's the trap of overthinking. It doesn't show up like a crisis. It creeps in quietly, disguised as responsibility. You tell yourself you're being thorough, being smart, but what's really happening is paralysis in slow motion. Nietzsche would say this isn't about logic, it's about fear. You're not thinking your way to truth, you're thinking your way out of risk, out of life. When we're afraid to step into uncertainty, we try to control it with thought. We build a kind of mental fortress, brick by brick, layer by layer, until we feel safe. But safety isn't clarity, it's containment. And the walls we build to protect ourselves eventually start to close in. The harsh truth? That fortress you've built is now a prison, one made of your own hesitation, your own avoidance. And the door isn't locked, it never was. But you have to be the one to open it. You have to decide that clarity isn't something you wait for, it's something you move toward, even if you're scared. Especially if you're scared. Because thinking can't save you from life, only living can. Let's be honest, overthinking isn't a badge of intelligence, it's fear, dressed up to look like caution. We like to tell ourselves it's about being thorough, being responsible, but more often, it's a quiet refusal to face uncertainty, a way of staying busy without actually stepping forward. You know the drill. Before your feet even hit the floor, your mind is already spinning. You're rehearsing conversations that haven't happened, bracing for outcomes that may never come, wondering if today will be too much for you. And with every what if, your chest tightens, your energy fades, and you begin to shrink from a day that hasn't even begun. Nietzsche had a word for this kind of living: slave morality. It's what happens when we let fear, not strength, define our choices. It's a life ruled by hesitation, guilt, and a deep avoidance of risk. Instead of forging our path, we wait for permission. Instead of creating meaning, we seek comfort. We trade our freedom for safety. This isn't just about anxiety, it's about identity, because the more you overthink, the more you lose touch with who you really are, buried beneath layers of imagined disasters and second-guessed instincts. The truth? Your potential doesn't live in the mental rehearsals. It lives in the action you're afraid to take. And no amount of analysis will give you the courage that only movement can. At some point, you have to stop thinking and start becoming. You're not thinking too much, you're moving too little. And that's a hard truth to swallow, because in the moment, it feels like you're doing something important. You're planning, analyzing, anticipating. But what you're really doing is delaying. While your thoughts spin in circles, real life continues without you. That idea that sparked something in you, still sitting on the shelf. That honest conversation you know you need to have, still postponed. That step you promised yourself you'd take, still untouched. And the worst part is, it's not because you're incapable. It's because you're stuck in mental rehearsal for a life you're never actually living. You're preparing for battles that don't exist, solving problems that haven't happened, and crafting responses to situations you're too afraid to enter. All in the name of caution, all in the illusion of control. But as Nietzsche put it, he who cannot command himself must obey. When you stay locked in thought, you're not in control. You're at the mercy of your own hesitation. Overthinking isn't strength, it's stalled motion. It's what happens when you trade momentum for imagined perfection. The truth is, you don't need more time to think. You need more courage to act. Clarity doesn't come from overanalyzing. It comes from engagement, from doing, from risking. So if you feel lost in your mind, the way out isn't another thought. It's a step forward, one small act of will. Because your life doesn't change when you think it will. It changes when you move. This isn't just a thought problem. It's a crisis of becoming. Overthinking might seem like a mental habit, but it runs far deeper. It's a symptom of a deeper paralysis, of forgetting that you are the one who must move your life forward. Nietzsche called this the will to power, not in the sense of dominating others, but in reclaiming authorship over your own direction. It's the inner force that says, I act because I choose, not because I'm certain or ready or approved. When that will goes silent, fear rushes in to fill the space. You start living in your head, waiting for the perfect answer. You drift into endless rehearsals instead of stepping into the real world. Your instincts go quiet, your voice gets muffled. You hesitate so long, you begin to believe your hesitation is who you are. But Nietzsche was clear about this. No one is coming to rescue you from indecision. Not the perfect plan, not the perfect moment, not even a flash of confidence. You have to will your life into motion. You have to become the author of your own becoming. And that means choosing, even in uncertainty. It means risking being wrong, stumbling forward, and making movement the path to clarity, not the reward for it. Because life doesn't wait for your thoughts to line up. It meets you in action. And becoming yourself isn't something you can think your way into. It's something you do, one brave, imperfect decision at a time. Why do we stay stuck in the spiral of overthinking? Because at first it feels safe, it feels responsible. You tell yourself you're just being careful, trying to make the best decision. And in a way, that's true. Overthinking gives you the illusion of control. It lets you postpone risk while keeping your hands on the wheel. But here's the hidden cost. The more you use thought to avoid action, the more you teach yourself that fear is smarter than freedom. Each time you hesitate, you reinforce the idea that uncertainty is dangerous, that failure is unbearable, and that it's better to stay still than to step into the unknown. Over time, this becomes a pattern, one your nervous system learns to replicate. You begin to associate movement with threat, not growth, action with danger, not discovery, and slowly, without realizing it, your world gets smaller, your confidence erodes, your identity begins to shrink. You stop seeing yourself as someone who creates, initiates, and leads, and start seeing yourself as someone who copes, waits, and defers. Not because you lack potential, but because you've convinced yourself that stillness is safe. But true safety doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from capacity, from knowing you can handle what comes your way, and that can only be built through doing, through choosing, through walking forward, even when your mind begs you to pause. The spiral ends not with more thinking, but with one honest act of courage, one small step that says, I trust myself more than my fear. If you're still here, reading this, reflecting, feeling the weight of these words, this might be your turning point. Not because you've suddenly figured it all out, but because something deeper is stirring, a quiet instinct that knows, this isn't who I want to be anymore. That constant mental circling, that endless preparation, it's not your true nature. It's a shield, a habit you developed to stay safe in a world that felt uncertain. But now, that habit is keeping you from your own life. Nietzsche understood this deeply. He didn't believe in healing by fixing the past. He believed in becoming, choosing, shaping, and willing your future into existence. Not when you feel ready, but precisely when you don't. He wrote, become who you are. Not as a passive reflection, but as a challenge, a call to stop living by default and start living by design. That means letting go of the need for perfect clarity before you act. It means no longer performing thoughtfulness to avoid risk. It means standing in your truth, even if your voice shakes. Becoming who you are doesn't happen in your head. It happens in the doing, in the step you take before you feel certain, in the decision you make before you feel fully prepared. So if this hits home, don't just nod in agreement. Take it as a sign, not that you failed, but that you're ready, ready to move, ready to become, ready to reclaim your life from the spiral of thought and return to the power of action. You don't need more time, you need movement. Let's be real, you've already spent hours, maybe days, maybe even years, turning this over in your mind, weighing the options, searching for clarity, waiting for the right moment. But at some point, all that thinking stops being helpful and starts becoming a trap, not because you're not smart enough, but because you're mistaking mental noise for inner wisdom. The truth is, clarity rarely arrives before action. It's not found in another book, another conversation, or another sleepless night of looping thoughts. It comes after the step is taken, after you risk discomfort, after you stop waiting and start deciding. Nietzsche once said, no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. And owning yourself means taking full responsibility for your direction, even when it's uncertain, even when it's hard, even when your fear is screaming that you're not ready. That's the cost of real freedom. It's not about the absence of fear. It's about doing the thing anyway. It's choosing to move forward, not because you're sure, but because you're tired of living at the mercy of hesitation. So if you're stuck, the answer probably isn't more time. It's more courage. One honest act, one imperfect leap. Because the longer you wait, the louder fear becomes. But the moment you move, really move, you remind yourself who's in charge, and you begin at last to reclaim your life. The voice in your head isn't always yours. That might sound strange at first, but it's one of Nietzsche's most powerful and unsettling ideas. He believed that many of the beliefs we treat as our own were actually passed down to us. Inherited thoughts, conditioned fears, echoes from institutions, parents, teachers, past versions of ourselves, ideas we never chose, but internalized anyway. So when your mind whispers, "Don't speak up, you'll sound stupid," or "Stay small, it's safer here," or "Keep thinking, you're not ready yet," pause, listen carefully, and then ask yourself, whose voice is that? Because the truth is, much of what we call overthinking is really just inner conflict between our conditioned self and our authentic self. One inherited fear pulling the brakes, one outdated belief guarding the door. We confuse these voices for wisdom, but they're often just old scripts playing on repeat. Your real voice, the deeper one, isn't paralyzed by fear. It doesn't obsess over every consequence. It doesn't beg for permission. It knows. It may not speak as loudly, but when you hear it, you feel it. Not as anxiety, but as truth, as a quiet urge to move, to act, to live. And that's the voice you need to trust. Not the loudest one, not the most familiar one, but the one that moves you forward, not back. Because becoming who you are means choosing which voice to follow and having the courage to silence the ones that never belonged to you in the first place. You're not lazy, you're disconnected from your will. This is something Nietzsche saw with piercing clarity. What we often label as laziness isn't a lack of effort or discipline, it's a loss of direction, a collapse of belief in our ability to shape the world through our own choices. And when that inner will goes quiet, so does our energy. Overthinkers aren't weak, they're just exhausted, not from doing too little, but from doing too much internally, running simulations in their mind, replaying conversations, imagining every possible outcome. It's like living 100 different lives in your head and forgetting to inhabit the one that's actually real. No wonder you feel stuck. No wonder your motivation feels so far away. You're trying to move forward with your thoughts instead of your will. But clarity doesn't come at the end of endless reflection. It doesn't reward you for thinking the longest or preparing the hardest. It shows up when you decide, when you choose a direction, even imperfectly, and take the first step. So don't wait for the perfect mindset. Don't wait to feel ready. You're not lazy, you're just overdue for movement. And the way back to life isn't in your head, it's in your next act of will. Imagine a life where you trust yourself, where you wake up in the morning and instead of getting trapped in a loop of overthinking, replaying conversations, forecasting disasters, hesitating over every small move, you simply breathe, you feel the uncertainty, and you move anyway, not recklessly, but with intention, with presence. You walk into that meeting, that conversation, that challenge, not because you're certain of the outcome, but because you've stopped needing to be. You've stopped measuring your worth by how others see you. You're no longer rehearsing the right thing to say. You're speaking from your gut, from your clarity, from the quiet strength of self-trust. You begin to make decisions not because they're guaranteed to succeed, but because they're aligned, because they belong to you, and that alone makes them worth something. This isn't a fantasy. This is what life starts to look like when you let go of perfection, of delay, of waiting for every variable to line up. It's what happens when you stop performing thoughtfulness and start living with courage. Because the life you want, the one that feels real, grounded, and alive, doesn't come from thinking your way there. It comes from becoming, one choice at a time, one step closer to yourself. If you're looking for something practical to ground all of this, try this simple 3-step practice. It won't solve everything overnight, but it can shift your momentum right now. First, catch yourself in the spiral. That moment when your thoughts start looping and your body begins to tense. Name it gently. This is overthinking. Just recognizing it creates space. Second, break the pattern physically. Stand up, shake out your arms, stretch, or take one full conscious breath. This tells your nervous system, we're not trapped, we're choosing. Third, take one small action, not a big leap, just something real. Send the email you've been avoiding. Speak the sentence you've been rehearsing. Step outside. Make the call. Do something that exists in the world, not just in your head. Why? Because clarity doesn't wait at the end of thought. It meets you in motion. And sometimes, the smallest action is all it takes to start becoming yourself again. Your thoughts aren't the problem. Your relationship to them is. Overthinking is a habit, a learned avoidance of risk, truth, and power. Nietzsche didn't want you to think less. He wanted you to live more. So here's the truth. Your life isn't something to figure out. It's something to become. And it starts the moment you choose motion over noise. Live dangerously, Nietzsche said. Not recklessly, but bravely, authentically, willfully. If this video stirred something in you, if you're ready to take your mind off repeat and reclaim your life, drop a comment. I choose to act. And if you want to go deeper, I made another video called You're Not Lazy, You're Disoriented. It's all about how Nietzsche reframes motivation loss as a crisis of direction. Watch that next. It might just change how you see yourself. Until then, stop thinking your life away. It's too short, too urgent, too yours. You've got this.